if we can pull a big vote out of northeastern Pennsylvania for Barack and Joe, there isn't any way they lose Pennsylvania. And if they win Pennsylvania, there's no way they lose the White House. So let's work the next 23 days and let's elect Barack Obama and the next Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Isn't she great? I got to tell you something before this official part of my speech begins. About 10 months ago, I was talking about Hillary, and Jill looked at, we were at the kitchen table, a Sunday dinner with everybody around. She said, "I know, Joe, I know you love her. I do love you."
It's mutual, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be here. It's good to be home. In my heart. You know, Mayor Doherty once said that Hillary's toughness was an anthracite trait. It was a Scranton trait. Well, I couldn't agree more. Ladies and gentlemen, when Barack Obama and I, God willing, become President and Vice President of the United States, we're going to have a lot of work ahead of us. And folks, one of the reasons why, beyond my absolute confidence in Barack Obama and a little confidence in myself, one of the reasons why I'm so certain, I am so certain that we will in fact turn this country around, is I was there, I was with him, I was for him, I stood by his side, I watched Bill Clinton turn this country around. And I tell you what, hold that prompter. I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, every time I hear, although I've known President Clinton for 25 years, I can't bring myself to call him Bill. He's still the President of the United States that did the greatest thing. But think about it, folks. All kidding aside, ask yourself, when he started to talk, literally now, I mean literal, it's not hypothetical. When he started to talk, I watched come over you exactly what comes over me every time he talks. You all started to listen. You knew the guy was talking from his heart. You knew he knew what he was talking about. And you knew he knew how to get it done. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be so good to have a president like that again that I cannot wait. I cannot wait. You know, there's one thing I love about, there's a lot of things I love about Hillary, and we really are friends. That's not, you know, people in our, as Paul can tell you, and as Bobby Casey can tell you, people in our business, you hear us say when you get up, "My good friend from the state of," and you hear us use that salutation in the Senate, and I do have a lot of good friends. But Hillary and I truly, truly are friends, and we have been friends for a long time. And the thing that I think I love about her, and I don't know whether it came from this valley. I don't know whether it came from the same place. I don't know where it came from, but I'm being absolutely deadly earnest here. The one thing that I learned here at school, in my family, in Greenridge, at St. Paul's, the neighborhood I grew up in. No, I'm serious now. I really mean this. And it was no different in North Scranton or South Side. It didn't matter. The one thing I find about this city is what we learned in our faith and our family. There is the one most serious abuse a man or a woman or a government can engage in is to abuse power. abuse power. And ladies and gentlemen, the reason I love this woman, if you think about it now, you think about it. Everything she probably didn't think of it in these terms. Everything she's devoted her life to have been on the side of people who have been on the other side of power. On the other side of power. Either watching the wealthy or watching the government or watching some mother or father physically abuse power. And ladies and gentlemen, it's the only reason I ever got involved in government without even knowing, Paul, why I was getting involved. It just fit. And the reason why Hillary Clinton, I feel such a kinship to her, is more than she's just a fighter. I know fighters who fight for the wrong things. I know fighters who don't give up but have been consistently wrong. I don't know many fighters whose fight starts not from their head but from their gut. They're just simple sense of balance and fairness. This is a woman who understands what's right and what's wrong, what's fair and is unfair, and is always, always fighting against the abuse of power by the powerful. Folks, Hillary said she's going to be on the lawn and back of the White House when health care is signed. No. She's going to be standing there, handing the president the pen and taking the first pen when it's done. Because she, more than anyone else in America, will get it done. Folks, the tendency is here when you're with friends and people you've worked with and you admire is maybe to talk more about them than you should. And my instinct is to talk about another great friend of mine, Paul Konjarsky. We've been friends for a long, long time. Let me tell you something about it. It is critically important because it will say a lot about you. It will say a lot about this region. It will say a lot about my hometown, whether or not they re-elect Paul Konjarsky. I'm counting on you, feeling like you always have, backing somebody who's backed you your entire life, many of you, and some of you, so back him. Back him now. He needs your help. Look, folks, right now, all across Pennsylvania, folks are trying to figure out what all this tough economic news means for them and for their families. But too many Americans, the economy didn't start collapsing a week ago. It didn't start collapsing a month ago. It didn't start collapsing a year ago. It started collapsing 8 years ago. For too long, families have been asking questions as simple as they are profound. They've been asking in my hometown of Wilmington and here, will I have a job next month? Can I afford to go to the doctors? Can I fill the gas tank? Is my house worth what I paid for it? Will I be able to send Mary back to college next semester? Am I going to be able to retire now that my 401k and the value of my home has evaporated? Ladies and gentlemen, they're asking simple questions, simple and profound questions that this administration and John McCain and Sarah Palin have been unwilling, unable, and apparently it seems like sometimes don't know how to even begin to answer. Folks, in 23 days, nothing less than our prosperity and our security is on the ballot. My wife Jill said this is the most important election in your life. That is not hyperbole. This is the single most important election any one of you have voted in. So folks, and by the way, we've had 3 debates so far. One debate about 10 days ago when I debated Sarah Palin, which I saw. Which I watched on Saturday Night Live. And Barack has had 2 debates with John McCain. Now look, if this was a 5-game series, I think it'd be over by now. But it's not. It's a 7-game series. By the way, did you notice in Barack's debate on Tuesday, not one of those undecided voters of that town meeting format, not one of them, asked a question about the ugly inferences and the unbecoming personal attacks that have been directed and launched by the McCain campaign. Not one. Not one question asked. And I think it's because people get it. They get that this election is about something much bigger than the personal attacks. Ladies and gentlemen, a recent analysis showed, and this is literal, a recent analysis showed that 100% of the advertisements that the McCain campaign is now running, 100%, are advertisements attacking Barack Obama. Well, folks, I guess when you vote with George Bush 90% of the time, all you can do is attack 100% of the time. There's nothing else to talk about. But folks, tell your neighbors, don't be distracted. Don't be distracted. These attacks don't hurt me. They don't hurt Barack Obama. They hurt the American people. That's who they hurt. Every single false charge, every single baseless accusation is a simple attempt to get you to focus on something other than what's affecting your family and your country. Ladies and gentlemen, beyond the attacks, what is John McCain really offering? What about the past 8 years? What about the past 8 years would John change in the next 4 years? Nothing. Literally nothing. Folks, you can't change the next 4 years. If you stood with George Bush the last 8 years, as Hillary said, trying to privatize Social Security. You can't. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't. You can't change the next 4 years. If you've stood there with George Bush, blocked our efforts, and Hillary led the fight to add 3.8 million children to health care, and it voted down and denied by George Bush. Folks, you can't change our approach to global warming if, as my opponent said in the debate, she's not paraphrasing, she's not quite sure what is causing global warming. How in the heck are you going to change it unless you know what caused it? Ladies and gentlemen, you can't change the next 4 years and reestablish the respect that President Clinton left us in around the world if you continue to supply and side with George Bush's policy of shoot first and ask questions later. Folks, you can't change the next 4 years if you believe that you'd still be spending $10 billion a month in Iraq when they have a $79 billion surplus. Folks, look, Scranton, the Lackawanna Valley, Pennsylvania, they have a long history. They have a long history of heroism, service and heroism. 3 of my mother's brothers from Greenridge all went off, like many of your grandparents or parents, to World War II. One of them, Ambrose Finnegan, never returned. He was shot down in New Guinea and his body was never recovered. That tradition runs throughout Pennsylvania. This is a state whose 28th Division served with such heroism in 2 world wars and every conflict since that the red keystone on their uniforms became known as the bucket of blood. Ladies and gentlemen, we're from Pennsylvania. We honor service. We honor sacrifice. And the sacrifices our soldiers are making this very day. We care. We care about our veterans when they return, and we will care for them. And ladies and gentlemen, to paraphrase George Bush Sr., read my lips, we will end this war. We will end this war. honor courage. We honor sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't change. You can't change the lives of the middle class when there's no difference, none, between what was done the last 8 years and what you'd do the next 4. Ladies and gentlemen, to paraphrase a great son of Scranton and the guy who I admire like the devil, Bobby Casey, when Bobby said, you can't call yourself a maverick when all you've been is a sidekick. That's why seeing John McCain's campaign become so erratic, relying on political stunts instead of offering solutions. Look how John McCain responded to the current economic crisis. And by the way, he's a good man. He's been my friend, as Hillary knows, for 33 years. No, he has been. He has been. And this guy deserves our honor for his bravery. He deserves it. It's legitimate. But folks, we need more than a brave soldier. We need a wise leader. We need a wise leader. And folks, look at John McCain. When this crisis began to hit at 9 a.m. on Monday, September the 15th, when everything started to crash, John McCain said, and I quote, "The fundamentals of this economy are strong." Then at 11 a.m. the same day, September the 15th, John said, "We're in the midst of an economic crisis." Folks, that's what we Catholics call an epiphany. Folks, presidents have to provide steady leadership in times of challenge, not lurching from one view to another in a matter of hours. That's not what presidents do. In those 2 hours, between 9 and 11, did John realize that the median income of Pennsylvania families had fallen more than $2,000 over the last 8 years? Did all of a sudden John realize that Pennsylvania had lost over 200,000 manufacturing jobs in the last 8 years? Did John McCain all of a sudden realize that the premiums you're paying for your health care have doubled in the last 8 years? Did he finally realize that this economic crisis was the final absolute verdict on the economic failures of the last 8 years? Look, folks, the problem with John McCain, God love him as my mother would say, John's epiphany wasn't that he saw the light. What John saw was the presidency receding from his grasp. That's what he saw. That's what he saw. Folks, this financial crisis has wiped out over $2 trillion out of people's retirement funds. We've seen the highest home foreclosure rate since the Great Depression. Folks, people are worried, and many of them are angry, and they have every right to be. But here's what I want to emphasize today. We've been through really difficult times before. Our parents and grandparents have been through very difficult times before. And we've come through it and always come out stronger. We've emerged stronger. But when we've done it because we've had leaders who have a steady hand, sound ideas, in order to get the country back on track. Barack Obama has assembled the most respected team of economic advisors this country has ever seen. The finest minds in government, finance, and business. People from both political parties, many of whom, along with Barack Obama, warned of the excess risk being taken by Wall Street, condoned by this administration, and supported by John McCain. Our administration will have the capacity to pull together the leaders of both political parties in Washington, D.C., as well as provide international leadership necessary to tackle and solve this crisis. Barack will be a president with the strength and ideas that the world is anxiously willing to follow, and they're not getting it. Look, folks, we have all the tools. We have all the tools available to resolve this crisis, and we know which tools to use. The real question for all America today is, within whose hands are we going to place those tools for the next 4 years? the steady hand of Barack Obama, backed by the finest economic minds in our country, or the uncertain hands of a McCain administration, clinging to the past, lurching from one bad idea to another, and backed up by some of the very people who came up with the policies that contributed to this awful failure. It's that basic, folks. It's that simple. And an Obama-Biden administration will know how to get the job done, ladies and gentlemen. Here's how. We're going to make it easier for people to stay in their homes. We're going to change the bankruptcy laws, allow judges to reduce the amount of money you owe in your home, not just the amount of interest rate you own. We're going to push the Treasury to use its authority that Barack insisted they have to allowing those who are on the cusp of maybe losing their home, one paycheck away, to allow them to renegotiate the terms of their mortgages so they can stay in their homes. And ladies and gentlemen, beyond that, the value of our homes and the economic health of our communities is tied ultimately to the strength of the middle class, and that's tied to jobs. And folks, that's why all of our plans, from investing in infrastructure and education, tax cuts to the middle class, health care, focus on one thing: jobs, creating jobs, keeping jobs in America, making sure people have the skill for the jobs they'll do, and making sure they can keep their health care through their jobs. Folks, here's how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to do it. First, we're going to give hard-pressed families genuine tax breaks. Barack Obama and I will give meaningful tax cuts to 95% of the people who collect a paycheck in America. That's guaranteed. And ladies and gentlemen, that includes 6.5 million people right here in Pennsylvania. And instead of giving more tax breaks to companies that ship jobs overseas, as McCain proposes, we're going to take that money and give them tax breaks if they give jobs here in the United States of America. Folks, we're going to close those offshore tax loopholes and let the wealthy and individuals and businesses literally stash $100 billion a year in offshore tax havens. You know, I was criticized by Sarah Palin for talking about patriotism. That's okay. For talking about patriotism and taxes. Well, let me tell you what the people I grew up in Greenridge and Claymont and Wilmington think is unpatriotic. They think it's unpatriotic when you earn your money in the United States of America and you hide it offshore to avoid taxes, making sure you have to make up the difference. It is unpatriotic to take $100 billion offshore and not pay your taxes. That is unpatriotic. So I don't need a lecture on patriotism. I've had it to hear. And folks, we're going to rebuild America. We're going to make an investment on our crumbling roads, our schools, our bridges, an investment of $60 billion over the next 10 years, creating 2 million new jobs, average salary $50,000 a year. That builds the middle class. Ladies and gentlemen, that will create 82,000 new jobs at 50 grand a year right here in Pennsylvania. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get serious about energy made in America. Folks, we're going to end our addiction to oil. And we'll kill 3 birds with 1 stone. By doing so, we'll strengthen our security, protect our environment, and get our economy moving by creating high-paying jobs. Folks, instead of pouring $350 billion a year, which we do, into the sands of Saudi Arabia and the pockets of a Venezuela dictator, ladies and gentlemen, we should pour that money into investing in the soil in the Midwest, in renewable energy here, in clean coal, in making sure that we are here in America investing money. We're going to invest $15 billion a year. Look, John Kennedy said we were going to go to the moon. At the time, he didn't have any notion exactly how, but he knew one thing. He understood his fellow countrymen. And he knows there's never been a time in all of the history of this country when a president has set a goal that America has not reached the goal. Well, when we say we're going to wean ourselves off of oil, we mean it. We're going to have the equivalent of an Apollo project invest $150 billion over the next 10 years to free ourselves from oil. Look, folks, as my brother Jimmy would say, this is in our wheelhouse. Why can't we invest $15 billion a year in renewable energy, creating solar and wind and using all the assets we have in this country, providing good-paying jobs that can't be outsourced? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to invest in using resources we have here in America. As I said, like clean coal. Folks, if we develop clean coal, we not only have the ability to reduce the cost and dependence, we can export that technology around the world, creating tens of thousands of new jobs. Right now, every week, there's a dirty coal plant going online in China once a week, and it's literally polluting the west coast of the United States of America. Why is it that we're not investing the money and the technology in providing for this resource that's already there? Ladies and gentlemen, you know China's going to use it. We better give them the clean technology to use it, making money doing it and saving the environment in the process. Folks, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut health care costs for family and businesses, and in addition to cutting the health care costs for family and businesses, provide affordable health care to every single solitary American. As Barack said on Tuesday, health care isn't a privilege. Wasn't it an interesting question when McCain and Obama were asked about whether or not health care was a privilege or a right? You didn't hear Barack hesitate, did you? We believe health care is a natural American right that every single American has. You know, it's something every one of us on this stage feels strongly about, and there's no denying the problem. Right now, there are over 1 million Pennsylvanians without any health care at all, any health care. And ladies and gentlemen, those of you who have health care like me, we think in terms of deductible. But I promise you, every single solitary of Pennsylvania, those 1 million people are going to bed tonight without health care. They're staring at the ceiling, and they understand. They understand the cost of a mammography. They understand the cost of a mastectomy. They understand the cost of delivering a healthy baby. They understand the cost of delivering a premature baby. And they know every single thing they work for is one serious illness away from being wiped out because they don't have health care. That is not right. It is simply not right. And what does John McCain do about it? What does John McCain say? For the first time in American history, he says he is going to tax your health care policy at work as if it's income. Those of you who get health care from your employer are going to pay for it just like as if you got a raise in direct income. And let me tell you what's going to happen. It's going to then, at that point, cause your employers to drop health care. It's estimated 20 million people who have health care through their business will have it drop because of this. But John says he'll make up for it by giving you a $5,000 tax credit to buy back a $12,000 policy. Folks, where I come from in Wilmington, Delaware, we call that the ultimate bridge to nowhere. And folks, you've been standing a long time, but let me say one more thing to you. The last thing we're going to do, because we think it's so critical, is we're going to see to it that every kid who is intellectually and academically capable of going to college will be able to go to college. Or as my wife Jill constantly points out to me, a nation that out-educates us will out-compete us. A nation that out-educates us will out-compete us. Ladies and gentlemen, here's how we're going to do it. We have a simple, basic proposition. We think we should significantly broaden the definition of national service beyond the military. My son's serving in the military, others are, and we're proud. We're proud. But ladies and gentlemen, we think if you're willing to serve in underprivileged rural areas, in inner cities, in schools, in hospitals, in senior centers, if you're willing to serve your country, we're willing to guarantee you can afford to go to college. But folks, at the end of the day, this gets down to a very basic proposition. Barack Obama and I define progress for America very differently than John McCain and Sarah Palin do. We do not measure progress based on whether or not how many regulations we've cut, how much, quote, government we've gotten out of the way. We don't measure progress based on the salaries of our CEOs and how well they're doing. We measure progress based in terms that I learned here in Scranton, in terms of dignity and respect. Dignity and respect for the middle class, the people who work like hell their whole lives just to provide for their families. Ladies and gentlemen, we measure success in terms of whether or not you have a job, whether or not you can afford health care, whether or not you can fill up your gas tank, whether you can heat your home this winter, whether you can send your kids to school, or real simply, as my dad would say, whether you can look your child in the eye and say with certainty, honey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. That's how we measure progress. It's very basic. It's very simple. You know, I was just up visiting my childhood home, and I brought my sister back with me, and we went up into Greenridge and 2446 North Washington Avenue. And as we walked around, I was reminded of the same thing that happened in my hometown of Scranton, as well as when I moved, because there was no work here. We moved to Claymont, Delaware, and then we moved to Wilmington, Delaware. We grew up, my sister and me, we grew up in a neighborhood where our mothers and fathers all told us, in the whole neighborhood, if we worked hard, if we were honest, if we loved our country, if we played by the rules, there wasn't a single solitary thing we could not accomplish. To some of you younger people, that may sound a little corny, but that's exactly, literally what we were taught. And we believed it. And we went out and did it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm running with Barack Obama because I believe with every fiber of my being we can do that again. I believe that with his leadership, we'll be able to reinstill that kind of confidence, that certainty in the American dream. My dad used to have an expression, and my friend, I have a lot of friends here, but Larry Orr, one of my childhood friends, was with me, and he'd heard my dad say it. Every time you get knocked down, my dad looked at you, champ, when you get knocked down, get up. Just get up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've never seen as many Americans knocked down as I have in the last 8 years. It's time together for us to get up. It's time for America to get up. I'm ready. You're ready. Barack Obama is ready. It's our time. It's America's time. So get up, Pennsylvania. Get up, Scranton. Get up. Deliver this election for Barack Obama.